Back to another lesson of the Logos and Letters. My name is Liam, and we're going to proceed on with this idea of theresis deca hexis, right? This field of opposition, one of the four types of opposition. We've covered a lot of ground, and I think we've clarified well enough what a case of theresis is and what a case of hexis is. Privation and Hexis. Again, just to clarify, I'm going to use the word hexis from now on. It's just way easier, and I think everybody watching this is smart enough to understand what I mean by it, especially in this very, very specific context. Okay, so we're gonna carry on, and this next part, when I was first translating it, caught me off guard a little bit. I wasn't expecting it to be, I don't know, it feels like a road. Feels like a speed hump when you're driving along quite quickly, maybe at like 50, 60 kilometers an hour. I don't know what that would be for an American viewer. That would be like something like 45, 40 miles per hour, something like that. And then there's a big speed bump and you've got to really slow down all of a sudden. That's what it was like here. So let's get started where we left off. So tinagarek genetes udopsin kai ute odontas. Allau legatai ute noda ute tufla. Right? So here's a clarification for last lesson. Nice way to sum it up. It says, there are some things from generation, from birth, which are which neither sight have nor teeth have. But we do not. It is not spoken of them that they are toothless nor blind. All right. So if a mole, some species of mole, or genus of mole, I'm not too up to date with those subterranean mammals, but if they are born without sight and they're not meant to have sight, they are not blind. Okay, we do not say that they are blind. Okay, in logic anyway. I know that in everyday conversation we say, oh, they're blind because they can't see. All right, but for them, if they could communicate, they would probably say, again, like the miracle Balaam's donkey, they would probably say to us, we can see perfectly well, all right, because they can map their surroundings with their senses that they have perfectly well, all right. So they see that way, all right. We with our sight. A blind person will see with their stick and or see the words with braille with touch, right? I know that I'm stretching the word see so much here semantically, but you get what I'm trying to communicate. I think you get the argument of the miraculous mole that is speaking to you right now, saying, no, nature has given me exactly what I need. I might be blind to you because I cannot use eyes, okay, and it understands that, but it can, underneath the earth, it can see better than us, and I put the word see in speech marks there, italic. I'm going to carry on, and as well with we don't say they're toothless, those things that are born without teeth. All right. What's an animal besides the whale that doesn't have teeth? Frogs. Okay, frogs don't have teeth. The way I said frogs just then. Frogs don't have teeth, and it's just silly if you're studying, looking at all these frogs, and someone's listing off these amazing things that they can do, and then someone in a moment of silence just goes, "It's toothless." Of course it's toothless, it's a frog. I don't know what. Yeah, anyway, carrying on. I think the point's been made clear enough. Here's where it gets to the speed bump part. Dode estareis kai toten hexis kain gestis tareis kai hexis. Listen to this, right? Might not trip you up as much as it tripped me up. Being in a state of privation and having a hexis is not privation and not hexis, right? trip me up for a moment because they're so related. Those two things are so related. But this sort of speech that he's about to do, we've seen a few times now, scattered about. I would say about 3 times max, but I'm more confident saying twice. And it is where he separates the abstraction from the concrete, the abstract from the concrete. Okay, and he's doing that again here. Okay, so hexis men garestin heopsis, steresis dehe tuflotes. Right, so he clarifies. Here's the right. It's like almost a definition by example. Habit is for, on one hand, habit is sight, vision. Steresis. Wait, did I say habit? Sorry, my bad. Hexis, for on one hand, hexis is sight, vision. Steresis, privation, on the other hand, is blindness. Okay? Spoken of, according, regarding, concerning, peritautonti, the exact same thing, the eyes, right? Dode ekain, den opsin, ukestin opsis. Having vision is not vision, nor is having, being blind, blindness. They are two different things. One, tuflotes is the abstraction. It is the concept, the understanding of to be deprived of sight, to be in a privation of vision, right? But vision itself is the concrete. It's the reality, right? It's what you participate in. Steresis gartis he tuflotes estin. Right? So some privation of someone is blindness, of something is blindness. Dode tuflon. But the being blind is to be deprived, right? So 2 different things here. Blindness is the abstraction. The being blind, the being toothless, that is the privation, right? 30-year-old man, through some horrific injury or some unnatural error in his genetics, loses all of his teeth, right? Maybe a combination of both. That right there, that example of that toothless man, probably wearing dentures, is a concrete participation in the fact that he is without teeth. But toothlessness is an abstraction of it. You can consider a 2-year-old dog who is blind in both eyes completely as being blind. Being blind is a concrete participation in reality, right? But blindness is the abstraction that we recognize the blind dog from. All right, without further ado, back down to earth. Ustaresis estin. Right, not privation. Continuing on. Ete ien hei tuflotes tauton toi tuflonanai categoraeto an amphoterra kata tu au tu. Right, so be predicated of both according to the same thing. So being blind, right, and the blindness. Okay, the being blind and the blindness is spoken of the exact same thing, like this pair of eyes or that pair of eyes or that pair of eyes, right? An ophthalmologist who studies eyes and can treat some eye conditions and can prescribe glasses might test someone and recognize that there is blindness, recognize the blindness, and then say, you are blind, right? It's a state, it's a participation. You are blind, right? You are living that. You're a living example of what the blindness is. All right? Ala tuflos, like ala the blind man, men legatai hoanthropos, right? Right? We can say that there is a blind man. The man is a blind man. Tuflotes, blindness, the oudomos legatai hoanthropos. We never say a man is blindness, right? Why? Because blindness is the abstraction. This man is not the abstraction of being deprived of sight. Okay? That sounds like some fever dream. That sounds like some nightmare, some Stephen King sort of stuff, okay? So that is a great way of recognizing that. Let me clear all this up, okay? Made a mess here. So he's done a little bit of a test here to show you how it works, right? To separate the grammar and to show you the abstraction on one hand, and on the other hand, the lived reality of it, so that we can sharpen our language, okay, and sharpen our understanding of what these things are, okay? Toothlessness is a abstraction, right? And we look at something, and it doesn't have teeth when it should have teeth, and we recognize that it is participating in that. It is representing that. It is a example of that, and we say, you are toothless, okay? And that toothless thing nods its head, whatever it is, because it perfectly understands you no matter what, and so on and so forth. So I don't really have any artworks to support anything that of what I'm saying right now. That's why I'm just using hypotheticals. Again, must be some art theory that painters of the eras that I'm showing don't like to show the privations. Mainly, this is Romanticism. The artworks that you see here, John Waterhouse especially, is an absolute beast. But yeah, so anyway, going to continue on, I think, with finishing off just this last part. It'll be a very brief lesson, the next one, probably less than 10 minutes for sure, something about 7 or 8 minutes. Just wrapping this up, okay, wrapping this up. We'll go to the very last, for me, it'll be tomorrow. It'll be the very last area of opposition, because there's 4 and we've covered 3 now. We're about to finish the 3rd, and this will be the 4th, okay, which is the denial and the affirmation. And then we just sort of go through and tidy things up, and then chapter 10 will be all wrapped up. And yeah, we'll be almost at the end of categories, right? So it's been a while. It's been a long one. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Categories is very dear to me. What I mean by that is I just think it's such a fantastic text. Okay, it is so brilliant in so many ways and so valuable for so many people. Might say this before I wrap things up. Sometimes some of the things that are taught here aren't immediately obvious how they're useful. That is fair enough. However, as life goes on and time does its thing, these random moments will just keep popping up, where the categories and things that you learn in lessons such as these sort of just click into place and pop up and come to mind. Okay, it's one of those things. It's like a Swiss Army knife. All right. So yeah, that's something that you should keep in mind. If you can't immediately figure out why it's useful, you might figure out why it's useful when you're in the middle of a lecture. If you're a university student, you might figure out why it's useful in the middle of a debate, if you're a debater, or when you're having a very enjoyable and very serious conversation about the deeper things in life. Some of these things will pop up. That's what I'm trying to communicate. So, as always, si semper fortis in opere. My name is Liam, and I'll see you next time.